the third mix session I'm trying to do to get some poorly performed vocals that I did to actually work within this track that I'm putting together. In the last two videos, just to recap, I spent a little over a half hour setting up a quick and dirty compression and EQ for the 3 different vocal channels. And then the second video, I spent nearly 2 hours basically using a real-time pitch correction processor to fix any of the slightly out of tune vocals or any wavering problems that I had during the performance. Now the AW4416 was capable of doing that same kind of thing by itself, but it's a much more tedious process because you have to go in, basically select just the part of the track that's causing the trouble, then figure out how bad it's off one way or another. My way would be using the pitch shift processor inside the machine, and then going back into the editing features and telling it to correct just that part of the track by X% of pitch change, whether it's up or down. It turned out I was about 13% off from actually being on key within that note. It doesn't really equate to much, but it's enough that you can tell a difference. So all that's been taken care of, and now the track is ready to actually start mixing in with the rest of the music. I've already previously mixed the music quite a while ago, because I've actually had all that stuff done long before I ever got around to being able to do the vocals. And it's all set up under an auto mix setting, and I'll just have to try and figure out how well I can get the vocals to sit in. Usually, from what I found, every time you add another element to a mix, it changes how you have to mix the rest of the music. Sometimes very slightly, sometimes quite a bit. And in that case, well, in this case, I hope it's very slightly, because I really like how I got the rest of the music to sound, how everything's set up. And there's some things that anyone who's going to be mixing any kind of vocals, music, or whatever, for anybody who's new, this is something you have to think about. You got to basically plan out or have an idea of really what you're going to try and do with the vocals beforehand, like effects wise, what they're going to sound like, how you want the whole thing to sound together. And in this case, my thoughts for my vocal performance, I don't really want much effects on the main vocals. I want them to be pretty dry. If I'm going to use anything, it's going to be very minute, whether it be a reverb, delay, or some kind of modulation effect like chorus, flanger, whatever. There will be parts though where I want to have a much stronger effect on the main vocal. Now in contrast, the secondary vocal lines that are used during the chorus, I want to have a lot of effect put on those. I recorded this track a second time. This is actually the third time recording this track. But the second time I recorded it, I was doing it as a collaborative project with a friend of mine who's a really great vocalist. And we were sending the files back and forth via MP3 through the internet. And with his vocal performance in his style, it's much more mellow, but he has a much better range and much more control over his voice. And he's just had more experience in music than I have in general, because he was 15 years older than I am. But the way he set it up having quite a bit of effects put on both the main vocal and the vocals used during the chorus. And I asked him how he did it. He said he used 3 microphones and he ran them through delays, reverb, and a chorus, I think, if I remember correctly, to get this effect that was almost be like a number of people, several people all singing in unison in a large hall or chamber or tunnel basically. And I still want to try and get a similar effect to that on the chorus line vocals. And that being the case, that's going to require just 2 different effects processors, programs right there to deal with it. because the main vocals and the chorus line vocals at some points just overlap ever so slightly, but it's enough that if I was to try and switch the programming in the machine alone for one processor, it would cause a noticeable problem with the delay between switching from one program setting to the next. Now, the AW4416 does have two internal processors, and of course you can get a Y56K card to get several more programs or processors to use all at once. However, mine's not set up that way. My system is set up to basically record a full band at once. It makes full use of all the mixer controls, because I've got two 8-channel inputs set in the back, as long as with the 8-channel input system that comes in the machine already. So what I've done is I've got external processors that I run through the auxiliary outputs here. And the two processors that are already in the machine, one is being completely taken up by the drums. I'm using a room reverb setting for the drums on this machine, and you know, it's okay to use it with other things that are in the song, other elements, but it's really not going to be the effect you want to have for every piece of the song, every instrument, every vocal throughout the entire track. You're going to be able to want to change things. So in such case, I think what I will do is I'll try to set up a program for the lead vocal on the secondary processor on the AW4416, which is only really used in any other part of the song during one section of the guitar solo. So there will be no issues with any kind of overlapping there. Anything else, like for the backing vocals, the secondary audio tracks for vocals, things like that, I think I'm going to try and run through my processors on the outboard system here and see what I can come up with effect settings for that. Basically, I just have actually four simple processors at the moment. I've got a Tascam vocal processor, which is very basic. It can do mic modeling, some compression, EQ, de-essing. I think it'll do expansion as well. But it'll also do auto-tune correcting and vocal doubling. I may just use it at this point for vocal doubling, because this is what I used to actually correct the pitch problems that I had with my main vocals prior. The second processor I got is a TC Helicon VoiceWorks Plus, and it's got all the basic effects in it, such as chorus, reverbs, delay, everything like that. It's also got a 4-voice harmony processor in it. So I may be using this for some other processes on the secondary vocal tracks, maybe even the main vocal track. Third processor is a Lexicon Reverb. It's got more than reverb in it. It's actually a surround reverb system, but it also has the other effects built into it. But what I like about this is it basically can give me 4 mono effects at once if I want to have them all separated out, or I can run 2 stereo effects together, or if I want to configure the machine here into a surround system format, it'll do that for me too. And then below that I got an aural exciter, which can be used per individual track however you want, or it can use for a mastering tool. Actually, I should say or it could be used for a mastering tool to help sweeten the whole track once it's been mixed. So at this point, I've got everything set up here. It's all plugged in through my Omni outputs and the digital stereo output, and it's connected up all via MIDI. So the AW4416, its internal MIDI sequencer will actually control all this stuff if I got it set up correctly. And I'm not too familiar with how to do that. I haven't used MIDI very often. But in past experiences doing simple things, I've learned how to make it work a little bit. So hopefully I can get some kind of use like that out of this system here for this particular song. Now, how I'm going to start this basically is I'm just going to start it back up with the original auto mix that I created for this track, and at some point I will of course stop that and then turn on the vocals and get their levels set, just see what they sound like, and then I'm going to start figuring out where to go from there. like I said, I've already got a plan of action of what I want to do with the vocals. Now I just need to figure out how to make all that stuff come to fruition. So let's get all that started. Alright, so I got everything set up already. I've got the auto mix turned back on. I've got the digital stereo output set up correctly so it runs through auxiliaries 5 and 6. I have all the auxiliary systems set up in the line with how I want it with my machines here. And I've got all buses turned off that I don't want to have running that created the same problems I had last time, where turned out some of the toms bled through into the vocal tracks because of such problems. So let's just go ahead and get this thing started up and see what we can do with it. Right there is where the vocals are going to kick in, so I'm going to turn the auto mix off. I'm going to set this up just to start a hair earlier, 5 seconds earlier, just whatever, and going to bring in the vocals, just get an idea of what it's going to sound like right there. Just the main vocal line at this time.
Our death is life and our war is God. We fight and kill it, we're the only ones. There's no way out of you completely see. This is our fate, this is our destiny. We slaughter billions and they're just for fun. We'll get the rest with a neutron bomb. Let's try to run, cause soon we'll get ya. We're gonna spread you between heaven and hell. You're doomed to die, yes, this is your fate. To live and die in the USA.
Alright, so that's what we got to work with right there and throughout the rest of the song. I don't know, I think it sounds kind of narrow. I think I may have cut too much of the mid-range out of it. I'm going to see what I might be able to do by adding that back in. I might add in some lower frequency as well. Let's go ahead and take another listen while I deal with that.
Well, here we are with the human race. We feast and famine on our wars and hate. Our death is life and our war is God. We fight and kill it, we're the only ones. There's no way out of you completely see. This is our fate, this is our destiny. We slaughter billions and they're just for fun. We'll get the rest with a neutron bomb. Let's try to run, cause soon we'll get ya. We're gonna spread you between heaven and hell. You're doomed to die, yes, this is your fate. To live and die in the USA.
Okay, that really helped. All I did was adjust the low-mid EQ setting from a negative 8.5 at 707 Hz, pulled it up to a negative 4.5 dB at 707 Hz. Didn't really have to do much just to make things sound a little bit better right there, but it added a little bit more throatiness to the mix. It added a little more of the lower frequencies back in. It helped increase the perceived volume output of the vocals a little bit more. All by doing a simple change like that. Doesn't sound as narrow or as far off in the distance as it did. Right now, these vocals are being processed, well, with no effects. They're completely dry. Just EQ and dynamics. Let's go ahead and take another listen really quick. Just going to pull it back a little bit. I want this to start up a little sooner.
Well, here we are with the human race. We feast and famine on our wars and hate. Our death is life and our war is God. We fight and kill it, we're the only ones. There's no way out of you completely see. This is our fate, this is our destiny. We slaughter billions and then just for fun we'll get the rest with our neutron bomb. Let's try to run, cause soon we'll get ya. We're gonna spread you between heaven and hell. You're doomed to die, yes, this is your fate. To live and die in the USA. Well, here we are with the human race. We feast and famine on our wars and hate. Our death is life and our war is God. We fight and kill it, we're the only ones. There's no way out of you completely see. This is our fate, this is our destiny. We slaughter billions and then just for fun we'll get the rest with our neutron bomb.
Alright, so during those 2 repeats, I actually did a couple other minor adjustments. I wanted to give a little more deep tone to the vocal track, so I increased the low end frequency by plus 2 dB, set the Q at 2.8 to narrow the bell width, and found out that I got a better effect with it if I turn the frequency up to 167 Hz as opposed to the default 125 Hz setting. I don't think I really want to do much more with EQ on that, not at this point. Perhaps maybe at this moment play around with a little bit of effects to see what happens. But at first I am going to save the vocal EQ setting here. Store as the main box. And let's go ahead and move up to the next vocal piece and just work with that one so we don't get too bored of hearing the same thing over and over and over again. That's a very common problem when having to mix a track. The engineer just has to listen to the same thing over again. And it gets pretty old for him. But it's all worth it in the end. The final product comes out great.
Hey! Take your last train to India. By irradiation is now a method of mastication. This biochemical warfare in this age will either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Okay, all I did there basically was just add the reverb that I'm using to as for the drum tracks to the vocals. Not really sure that's what I want to do, so I'm gonna turn that off on the vocal track, and I am going to just play around with the other processor on the AW here and see if there might be some other setting or effects processor that I might find more fitting for the track. Just bear with me as I do this, please. I think just for the hell of it, I'm going to start off with a phaser. See what kind of effect that has.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of mastication. This biochemical warfare in this age will either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Well, the phaser itself doesn't sound too bad. In fact, I kind of like it. It filled out the vocals a little more, gave them a little more character. As long as I don't overuse it, it might be a good effect to work with. So I'm going to keep it in mind, but I'm going to try a flange now and just see what that does.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of investigation. This biochemical warfare in the sage will either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Using the flange on the default settings, it really didn't sound a whole lot different from the phaser. But I did notice I had to push the volume level up a little bit higher just to be able to notice any kind of effect. I don't really want to have to do that too much because it's going to affect how the stereo master processor or compressor deals with the track. So at this point I may say no on the flange effect. Now let's move to a chorus, see what happens.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of investigation. This biochemical warfare in the sage will either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Let's listen to that again.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of investigation. This biochemical warfare in the sage will either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Not really sold on the chorus either. One thing about the last three effects that I tried, they boost the volume up enough that it really sounds like the lead vocal track is punched up higher than I want it to be. The levels are set higher than I want it to be. In order to get the effect out of it to where I can hear it without adjusting anything else. Now that's okay because it can be adjusted and everything can be reset, but at this moment, because I liked the way the main vocals sound without adding any of the effects, I like their levels and whatnot, I don't really want to have to adjust a lot of that later on. The phaser so far was the best choice, and even still it's going to require some modification, but it might be what I go with. I got one more idea to try out for these parts, and that's to use the symphonic effect setting and see how that actually affects the overall sound of the vocals.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of investigation. This biochemical warfare in the sage will either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
The symphonic's not bad. It's a little bit different than the chorus, but not a lot. But it was something that didn't require as much of an output for the effect to become apparent within the vocal track mixed in with the rest of the music. I may use it, but at this point I'm thinking I'm going to stick with the phaser. Try that again.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of investigation. This biochemical warfare in the sage We'll either grow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Well, I think the phaser is where it's at. So now just to figure out how I want the effects to take place. Let's solo out the vocal track and the phaser effects channel and see what we come up with.
Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emaciation. There's biochemical warfare in this age. We'll either glow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emaciation. There's biochemical warfare in this age. We'll either glow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emaciation. There's biochemical warfare in this age. We'll either glow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emaciation. There's biochemical warfare.
Alright. I'm going to see just what this... I think this is going to be something that has to be done with the music playing. So I'm going to unsolo everything, and we're going to go back to the main output. And I'm going to adjust effects while the music's going, just to see if I get a different feel for it.
In this age, we'll either glow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emaciation. There's biochemical warfare in this age. We'll either glow or we'll die from the plague. Don't try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emaciation. There's biochemical warfare in this age. We'll either glow or we'll die from the plague.
Alright, I really don't want too much effect on it. So, at that point, I'm probably going to leave it alone for now. I'm using a frequency of 0.2 Hertz, depth 17% with a 78% feedback. Offset is 7, stage 10. The low shelving frequency is left alone at 21.2 Hertz with no boost. I've changed the high shelving frequency to a 300 Hertz with only 1.5 dB of boost. At this point, I think I'll leave it. I may come back and try to adjust the frequency of it later. The track itself has a tempo of 143 beats per minute, 8x4 time signature, and so I may want to fit in the frequency of this phaser to fit with that time signature a little better. Right now we're going to save it under here, and we're just going to call it main vocal, main box effects. let's go ahead and move on to the last verse and just try out the effect there and just see how it sounds, see what we like. Alright, here we go. Last verse with the phaser effect that I have. See how it sounds.
So here we are with a human plague. We ravage life, we're a mass disgrace. Consume it all, this is just a way. Then when it's gone, we'll go out on the chain. We're always told not to kill a one, but then the army says can play with guns. And now it's told we can plainly see we're just a natural social hierarchy.
One more time.
So here we are with a human plague. We ravage life, we're a mass disgrace. Consume it all, this is just a way. Then when it's gone, we'll go out on the chain. We're always told not to kill a one, but then the army says can play with guns. And now it's told we can plainly see we're just a natural social hierarchy.
I think that's a good setting right there. At the moment I can't think of anything to do better with it, so I'm going to leave it as it is while for this mix. We'll use it in the setting while I do the vocal or the actual auto mix setup for this. And if any other ideas become apparent later on, we'll make some changes, but right now this is how it's going to be. I'm going to head back to the beginning of the track. We're going to try it with the first vocal, and then I'm going to see maybe what it would sound like if I do add the reverb from the drum tracks into the vocal track to see what it does with the phaser effect happening.
Well, here we are with a human race. We feast and famine on our wars and hate. Our death is life and our war is God. We fight and kill that we're the only ones. There's no way out of you can plainly see. This is our fate, this is our destiny. We slaughter billions and then just for fun we'll get the rest with a neutron bomb. Let's try to run, cause soon we'll get ya. We're gonna spread you between heaven and hell. You're doomed to die, yes, this is your fate. To live and die in the USA. Take the last train to India. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emancipation. This biochemical warfare in this age, we'll either grow or we'll die from the plague. So try to run, cause soon we'll get ya with poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Take the last train to India.
Alright, well, you know what? That doesn't sound too bad, actually. Just a little bit of reverb from the reverb room setting that I have for the drums added to the vocal track, and the phaser setting I have for that vocal track. So, actually, I'm quite happy with that. And I think I'll probably use that for the whole track, just for the vocals anyway. So at this point, we're going to save everything so I don't lose it all in case there's a power issue here. And then I'm going to figure out what I want to do with the chorus vocals. Okay, so right now I've been working on getting the system set up to actually make use of some of the MIDI functions. And the reason being is we're working on the chorus track, the vocals for the chorus track. and we're going to try and start thickening them up a bit. First of all, let's go ahead and listen to what the vocals sounded like from that part beforehand, before anything got taken care of. Turn that off. Alright, here are the backing vocals, or the chorus vocals, just by themselves, I believe. No other processing done to them. Yeah, let's see what it sounds like.
Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely. Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely.
Okay, so that's just the vocals with the work we did to them that I did to them on the previous two videos. They have compression settings turned on, and let's see. Yeah, they've been cut down to -12, TAC of 3 milliseconds, release 16 milliseconds with a 1 on the knee, and an output gain of 10 dB. And then the EQ, no changes to the EQ, it's still -9 dB at the 1 kilohertz.
Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely. Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely.
Okay, that's a good start. That's not where I want it though. I want it to thicken it up, and I want it to add a lot more effect onto it to give this big sound, like you're in a big chamber hall or just singing into a big tunnel or something like that. To start it off with, we're going to thicken it up by adding a vocal doubling effect. I'm going to use my first processor here, and I'm going to control it via the auto mix when I get to that point via MIDI control. I have it hooked up to channel 17 on the input mixer, that when I turn the input on and off, it turns my vocal doubling effect on and off. So when I go to the auto mix, I should be able to control that on and off right here. Now for this particular track and what I'm doing, that's probably not a big deal since I won't have a lot of changes to make through here. But just in case, this is the way you learn how to use things. You set it up. And I got to hook back into inputs 9 and 10 on the back of my recorder here. So let's hear what it sounds like with the vocal doubling track set up.
Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely. Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely.
Okay, that thickened it up a bit. Really all I did was I just added both left and right channels into the input of this machine that splits them up. This BNS digital setup, this guy gives you a little bit of a latency issue when it comes back. It's not very much to notice on its own, but if you were to try and combine the two tracks together for one, you would be able to tell. In which case here, you're getting phasing issues, and it may sound like it's also running through a chorus, but it helps thicken the sound up. Another thing, the way this works as a track doubler, is that it's auto-tuning one track, one side that's coming in. The other side is not being touched at all. So if it's working at all, the two inputs are being tuned however it's tuning them, for, like, say, the left channel output on it, and the right channel is not being touched, and then they're being combined back in with the left and right inputs or outputs of the vocal tracks that I have already recorded. And that gives us a little bit thicker of an effect when we play it back. But still, that's not where we want to stop. I want to add more to it. I want to add a greater sound, massive reverb, delay, maybe more modulation, but not so much that it just washes out the vocals themselves. They still need to be understandable, but I want to have that long decay on the very end of it. So this is good.
Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely. Just climb on board and ride the tracks. Once you start, baby, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely.
But we're gonna make it better. Okay, so now we just got a decent sound. Actually, I feel a pretty good sound on our main vocal track for this song. So now we're going to work on getting the right kind of sound that I'm looking for, or something really close, reasonably close, for the chorus line vocals, the backing vocals. So what I've got right now, I've got my machine, my AW4416 set up at about 10 seconds behind where the vocals start. So I can start using my stored programs to recall the settings I want for the basic parts of the track, such as compression and EQ and stuff, and then I'll just start working in the bits and pieces I want to get the right sound or something that I'm looking for. And then we'll just use that basis for the rest of the track for the backing vocals. And then pretty much this part is done. I've taken what I could from some fairly poorly performed vocals, even though it's the best I can do, and turn them into something that sounds a lot better and something much more usable for this track. Alright, so let's get started with this part. Auto record, and we're going to get things set up. Start with the dynamics, get everything ready. Well,
with poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Take the last train to India.
okay, sure, I'll update that. Now let's get set up for the EQ setting as well. Hopefully I can get that in there in time.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man.
Yeah, we want to update that. So I'm going to make sure that these two things actually come in before I start messing with the volume control. And what I'm doing is I'm making sure that the settings I just put in for EQ and compression actually show up in the auto mix.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way.
Well, they both showed up, so hopefully that works. Next step, get a level set for the basic volume output of the bass tracks. No effects, no nothing. And that's what we're going to work with for the rest of it. So let's hear what we got. We're going to go on repeat and start it up.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Try to fight, just will find you. So what's he gonna do? Take the last train to India.
Yeah, let's try that one more time, just see what happens if we can get it set up right.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Don't try to fight, just will find you. So what's he gonna do? Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the fact. Gonna make it out safely. Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the fact. Gonna make it out safely. Take the last train to India.
Okay, right there, the mix levels sound good as the vocals are dry, no processing it. We may have to change that, or I may have to change that once I actually start adding the effects to it, so rather than just sitting here talking about it, let's actually do something. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run this basic vocals without any other effects added to it into a chorus and arena style reverb, and we're going to just see what kind of effect we get out of that. I don't want it to become too overpowering, but I do want it to have some presence that we're like it's thickening up the sound, like there's more people singing and it's got a big echo to it, or something's close, like we're in a big chamber, a hall, or a tunnel basically. So let's see what we can do with that.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Don't try to fight, just will find you. So what's he gonna do? Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the fact. Gonna make it out safely. Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the fact. Gonna make it out safely. Take the last train to India.
Okay, we're going to leave that alone. We're going to use it as is, but now we're going to go and add a doubling effect to the vocals, the main vocal track.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Don't try to fight, just will find you. So what's he gonna do? Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely. Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna run away, must face the facts. Gonna make it out safely. Take the last train to India.
I think at this point I'm going to turn down some of the vocals. We're going to turn down the main vocal input, and then we'll add the doubling vocal lines to it again, the vocal effect again, just to see what that does, because I think I want that to be stronger without being too loud for the overall volume.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. Take the last train to India. Boy, ride the tracks. Start getting, there's no turning back. Run away, must face the fact. Take the last train to India.
Okay, we're going to try that again. Make sure I set it back at 11.4 where I have it right now.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate.
update that mix, head back, gonna go back into the track doubling effect and see what we can do with that.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. So try to find just what find you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting.
Alright, so it's just above the 20 there. We're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna set that just like that.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. So try to find just what find you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna away, must face the fight. Gonna make it out safe. Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna away, must face the fight. Gonna make it out safe. Take the last train to India.
So yes, we're going to keep that. And now we're going to go to the input section. And in this particular section I have my track doubling feature going into the inputs 9 and 10. And the chorus and arena reverb settings going into tracks 13 to 14. So in this particular vocal phrasing, this particular section, I have the effects from auxiliary outputs 5 and 6 for the main dry vocals coming out and going into 13 and 14, and then I also have them going through the track doubling feature in 9 and 10. Now I'm going to also take the inputs of track 9 and 10 and I'm going to send those out into the effects processor to come out in channels 13 and 14 here. So essentially we're going to be just building and building up on this vocals setting to try and get the right effect or something that sounds good to my ears for this particular track. So let's go ahead and give her a shot.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. So try to find just what find you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna away, must face the fight. Gonna make it out safe. Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna away, must face the fight. Gonna make it out safe. Take the last train to India.
Okay. Boosting both sides to 0 dB was just too much. Can't have it that loud. It starts to become too overpowering and for the rest of the mix for this particular style of music. Let's try it at a lower setting.
With poison toxins raining down from the sky, so be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. So try to find just what find you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna away, must face the fight. Gonna make it out safe. Take the last train to India. Ride the trains. Once you start getting, there's no turning back. Gonna away, must face the fight. Gonna make it out safe. Take the last train to India.
At the moment, I'm pretty happy with that. So at this point, we're going to turn off the auto record feature. I'm going to reset this thing back to 0. And I want to hear what this is going to sound like all the way through with just the vocals set like they are, not adding any other features that I'm thinking about for the future. Just see if the vocals sound good and usable in this song.
Famine on our wars and hate. Our death is life and our war is God. We fight and kill that we're the only ones. There's no way out of you can plainly see. This is our fate, this is our destiny. We slaughter billions and then just for fun we'll get the rest with a neutron bomb. Let's try to run, cause soon we'll get ya. We're gonna spread you between heaven and hell. You're doomed to die, yes, this is your fate. To live and die in the USA. Sunshine, I just will find you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Eradication by irradiation is now a method of emancipation. There's biochemical warfare in this age. We'll either grow or we'll die from the plague. So try to run, cause soon we'll get ya. With poison toxins raining down from the sky. So be a man and accept your fate. To live and die is the human way. So try to fight, just will find you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Ravage life, we're a mass disgrace. Consume it all, this is just a way. Then when it's gone, we'll go out on the chain. We're always told not to kill a one, but then the army says can play with guns. And now it's told we can plainly see we're just a natural social hierarchy. We get a lot of now we'll take it from you. So what you gonna do? Take the last train to India. Just march around.
Well, there you have it. That's pretty much it. That's the basic vocal setup there. Now, I may adjust the background vocals a little bit as far as our levels are concerned. I may do the same thing with the main vocal and maybe even adjust the EQs a bit, but as it is right now, I'm pretty damn happy with how this thing sounds compared to what I started with, which really wasn't all that good. And I think overall this is going to work. There's a few things that I'm going to add to it, so a few other effects changes that just come in here and there throughout the track that help accentuate certain pieces. And I'm also going to add in a few sound effects and stuff here and there that'll help accent certain pieces and accentuate certain pieces of the track, just to give it more character, more flair. Anyway, for anybody who has been watching, I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Maybe you learned a little bit from it if you are pretty new to mixing, but this is pretty much any sound engineer that ever will have to go through with any kind of project to an extent. Whether you're just an amateur like myself or a professional that's working in a studio that gets millions of dollars for every project they record from, you know, a record label or something for a big band. It's the same process. So anyway, like I said, hope you enjoyed it. And once I'm done with this whole thing here, I'll post the final mix down, or near final mix down before mastering, online, and let everybody here take a listen to it. Till then, take it easy.